Here's what you want. They find an episode because it answers their need. They hit play. It's helpful, clear, exactly what they needed. And then something shifts. Now they're not searching anywhere else. They're not comparing voices. They're not browsing for alternatives. They're thinking, wait a minute, what else can this person or this show do for me? And then suddenly they're 3 episodes deep, then 5, then 10. That's not luck. That's not because of the host's glowing personality. That's engineered bingeability. And today, you're going to learn how to design your podcast so your ideal client doesn't just listen once and stumble upon the show and then check out. They stay, they trust you, and eventually they work with you. You're listening to Podcasting for Financial Professionals, the show where smart business owners learn how to use podcasting as a serious growth tool, not just another marketing experiment. I'm Virginia Elder, podcast strategist and founder of Podcast Abundance. Since 2019, I've helped professionals stop guessing with their podcast and instead build a show that increases their authority, expands reach, and generates leads for their business. If you've ever wondered whether your podcast is actually generating leads or if you're just kind of publishing episodes and hoping for the best, you're not alone. And the issue usually isn't the content. It's that no one ever showed you what to track. Your podcast builds authority, warms leads, expands your reach, and creates opportunities long before someone ever hires you. But if you're only watching download numbers, you're missing most of the ROI. That's why I created the Podcast ROI Metrics Tracker, a free tool that helps you track 50 plus non-traditional metrics so you can finally see what your podcast is really doing for your business. Grab it now at podcastabundance.com/ROI-tracker. All right, let's get into the episode. The problem is most podcasts are built backwards. It's completely accidental, but here's what happens. Most financial professionals and business owners in general approach podcasting week to week. I'm guilty of this as well. It becomes this constant question of doom. What should I talk about this week? That question alone is a major problem, not just because you feel lost or out of ideas, but because it creates random episodes or seemingly random from the outside in. Just because you come up with an idea this week of like, oh, so-and-so asked me about this thing. Let me talk about that on the podcast this week. But that concept may or may not connect to the episode that just aired last week and the episode that will air in the future because you haven't planned it out intentionally. You're accidentally presenting disconnected ideas. The listener isn't being taken on a journey through a strategically stair-stepped set of solutions. And if there's no journey, there's no reason to stay. This is where you get stuck in a rut or in the podcast friend zone, as some may call it, because new listeners are popping in. Absolutely. But they're coming for the one episode that caught their attention based on whatever they typed in. They're consuming that episode that they came for, getting what they need, and bouncing. Unfortunately for the host, like you or like me, there was no relationship formed because they just listened to one episode. There was no trust building. There's really probably highly likely no conversion. If you want your show to be bingeable, You have to stop thinking in disjointed week to week episodes and start thinking about your listeners' experience across a multitude of episodes. Here's where I help you shift toward designing a listener journey instead of just content. A bingeable podcast is not a collection of episodes, it's a path. Your listener is moving from unaware to aware, from curious to convinced, from interested to ready to act. And your job is to guide them through that intentionally. The easiest way to think about this is in three types of episodes: attraction, nurture, and conversion. Attraction episodes are the ones that get discovered because they answer specific, searchable questions. Attraction episodes solve your listener's immediate problem or this potential listener's immediate problem. They're searching for answers to things like, how do I reduce taxes in retirement? What should I do with an old 401k? How do I budget for daycare? Right? These are the questions people are Googling for daily, and probably some of the questions you hear at your firm from clients or potential clients. These answer style episodes bring people in, attracting new listeners, a very important step to growing your show. But every episode can't be in this category. We have to design the listener's journey. So you've got your attraction episode that answers a question. And then next are the nurture episodes. Now your listener knows you exist, right? You answered that burning question in their mind. The next step in the listener journey is to nurture them. Nurture episodes are intentionally designed to deepen trust. They shift the listener's perspective. They explain why things work. And in doing so, they build your authority as the host and as the business owner and as the service provider that they would come to for help. It's inside nurture episodes where you get to teach your unique perspective or approach, and you get to make them think differently about their budget or their tax strategy or their next real estate purchase or whatever their next financial move is. These nurture episodes are also where you can share about the myths or mistakes or assumptions in your niche and why they're wrong and what you do differently. These episodes win listeners over to your way of doing business or your method. When someone buys into your method or your framework, they stop looking elsewhere and become quote unquote sold on you before ever signing your agreement. Then we sprinkle in the magic conversion episodes. Don't make the mistake of thinking these are sales episodes where you're just pushing your product or program. That's not what this is about. Conversion episodes are clarifying in that they help your listener understand what the next step is, how you help them, the way it feels to work with you, and why it makes sense for them to sign on to your course, your program, your services, your management style, whatever it is. Conversion episodes might include things like case studies, client scenarios, anonymized, of course, behind the scenes views of your process. Conversion episodes can be structured as stories, an answer to a commonly asked question, teaching style, or even an interview with a past client or like a coaching type episode where someone is asking you questions and you're like unpacking it with them on air. Of course, these can be edited to remove any kind of personal details or revealing information, but what matters is the intention behind the episode and the language you use inside it, because these are what really capture people who have been attracted, nurtured, and then they hear these conversion episodes and they think, oh my gosh, I love the way she walked through that person's issue with them. And she had some solutions that I didn't really know existed. You know, I should probably call this person, right? And so that's where that conversion piece is for your listeners. Now that you know the three types, attraction, nurture, and conversion, these three have to work together on purpose. Here's where most podcast hosts completely miss the target. They do have these types of episodes. I can go through their back catalog and pick them out and label them and show you what you've got. But typically, in the verbal or video portion of the episode, they didn't connect them, like string the episodes together for the listeners. In other words, after discussing, tax strategies, they didn't already plan for an episode on like a very specific tax strategy that was mentioned, but we're going to unpack it in the next episode. And, to have planned that to immediately follow so that you can like string them along into that next deeper episode. If they did, they'd be able to say, like on air during recording, if you enjoyed today's episode on this and are ready for the next step, make sure you've subscribed because in next week's episode, I'm going to be walking you through blah, 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 deeper strategy, right? A bingeable show is not just having all three types, attraction, nurture, and conversion type episodes. It's linking them together for your listeners in like a super obvious way and showing them what they should do, telling them during the episode that they should stay tuned and listen to next week's episode because it takes what we just talked about even further. Each episode should naturally lead to another, not randomly, of course, but strategically. And you, as the host, should, I hope, and I know this is possible, okay? Like, so I really dislike the should word, but when you are planning your show, let's say, once a quarter, you get to sit down and really map out like, what is the intention of the show this quarter? During that time, you should have episodes mapped out in this very connective, like next step, next step, next step way, so that you already know what's coming up, what you're going to talk about next week, who your guest is going to be, and you can already reference a future episode before it's ever released, or maybe even before it's recorded. This always keeps the listener hanging on for more. These references to the next step should be stated during the recording, say it again, on video or on audio and in the show notes. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Who says a listener is really going to start with an attraction episode and move through the nurture ones and the conversion ones like we're planning? What if they start in the middle? Yeah, they will. You cannot control where someone starts. So every episode, whether it's an attraction, nurture, or conversion episode, has to do another three things. Okay, so we've got three types of episodes. Now, each episode, no matter which type it is, has to do these three things. It has to stand alone as like a solid episode in and of itself, where it just solves a problem completely. It has to point forward, where it's hinting at what's next, where you're doing something like a spiel of like, if this episode was helpful, make sure you listen to the next episode on da da da. And you can even name a number. You can name the title or the topic if you don't know what it's going to be called yet. And you can have your team go back once that episode is created and link in the show notes. So you're consistently creating this map, right? Okay. So that's number 2, pointing forward. It has to stand alone and it has to point forward. Number 3 is that it has to reinforce your unique perspective. So, no matter where this potential new listener starts, you've given them a window into how you think, your unique approach, or how you solve problems within this niche. Okay, before you cut and run thinking, there's no way you can do this. I know you can. Let's design a practical strategy like right here together. Here's how you engineer bingeability. Let me simplify this for you and help you map this out right here in this podcast. So you're not only walking away with like the 3 types of episodes and then each one has to do these 3 things. Okay, let's walk this through. Let's pretend you are doing either like a quarterly plan for your show or even a 6-month plan for your show. And believe it or not, the best shows are thought about in this way because that's how they're able to book the perfect guest to talk about that episode. And it happens to align with, their workshop titles that they're doing this month and their call to action and their focus for the year and whatever. This is how that stuff works together. It's through planning. So, from the top, what you would do is map out 5 core topics. These are your pillars. So, for a financial professional, let's just say it might be taxes, retirement, business strategy. Maybe you have a bunch of business owners in your client base, cash flow, and then investing. So, you've got your 5 pillars. Step 2 is to layer their journey. So within each of those topics, you've got 5, you are going to branch off and create 2 to 3 episodes that would be attraction episodes. So they're like beginner level for your client base, right? So even if you have very wealthy clients or very advanced, multi-million dollar business owners, it would be a beginner level episode for them. Okay. So 2 to 3 attraction or beginner episodes per each of those 5 pillars, 2 to 3 nurture episodes for each of those pillars, and 1 to 2 conversion or what we call application episodes for each of those pillars. So 5 pillars, 3, 3, and 2. I mean, that is like 40 episodes right there. You're not guessing anymore what you're going to talk about. You are literally building a path, and you can piece these together and put them in the order that seems like it makes sense to you. But the beauty is that you can create episode bridges. And this is step 3 in this process. At the end and inside each episode, you're going to guide the listener to the next step. You're not going to say something like, make sure you subscribed and leave a review and yada, yada, yada. That is a wasted call to action. But you can say, if you're thinking about this, the next step is this. You're literally telling them what to do next. This isn't even your call to action. It's just a simple statement you can mention anywhere in the middle of your episode. And now that you have 40 episode topics, you can start to put them in order. You can say, okay, this one is the deeper strategic level to that one. You know which ones belong to which pillar. You know which ones are intended to be attraction, nurture, and conversion episodes. So you can really start to, spreadsheet this out, or maybe you have a whiteboard like I do, and you start drawing and connecting ideas, and you make a plan. And this is where, if you need help with something like this, I love to strategize in this way. So, your next step would be to book a free call with me so that I can figure out where you are in this process and what I can do to help. Step 4 of designing this, let's say 6 months of content here, is to tease what's coming next. This is very similar to the bridge. The bridge was where you're like hinting at the next thing. If you're thinking about tax strategy, then the next step is exploring whatever, syndications or the Augusta rule, or like, you could list something really specific and go really deep on that next topic. Now, the tease is when you're saying, like, in the next episode, and you can name, episode 109 or whatever it is, and you can tell them, I'm going to show you whatever it is. And you can talk about more specifically the content that you just hinted at. With this simple statement, you've significantly reduced listener turnover. Now they are waiting, hanging out, hanging on till next week, and looking forward to that next episode that you promised. Step 5 in this mapping strategy here, where we've got our 5 pillars, we've got, multiple episodes per pillar that are intentionally to attract, nurture, and convert. The main thing we have to do throughout all of these 40 episodes that we're designing is to stay consistent in your voice and message. I'm not talking about consistency in the form of like, you got to publish at 5 a.m. every Thursday. I'm talking about creating familiarity and creating validation for their expectation. Bingeability requires constant tone, consistent frameworks, a consistent philosophy, and even episode elements like your cover art, your music, where you are recording. When someone sees multiple pieces of your production are consistent over a long period of time, your listener develops a deeper level of trust. Like, oh, yeah, that's your home office. I know exactly where you moved that plant in the background, or whatever. That it's like these seemingly silly little things, but they feel like they know you based on them seeing you in the same setting, in the same place each time. Great sound each time, great lighting each time. Maybe your hair is similar, or they notice when you do change your hair, things like that. And that seems silly, but, and those are all visual, but in your voice and the things that you say, the kind of like catchphrases that you have for your show, your tone, whether you're kind of shouty or what, like really relaxed, whatever it is that's you has to remain consistent. So, for example, if I had been coached to be this like over the top streamer type when I jumped onto my episodes, and here you've been listening to all these episodes all this time, and you're thinking, like, what is she on? Like, who is that today? Because that is not how she is normally. Your listeners would feel the same way about you. So, consistency as far as how you present yourself, the things that you say, your excitement in your voice, all of that, when consistent, creates trust with your listeners. Now, let's talk about what having a bingeable show does for your business. When your podcast becomes bingeable, which of course we already talked about, this isn't just like a mistake and you're lucky and so you created this bingeable show. No, it is an intentional design. And when this happens, you stop chasing attention. Instead, listeners spend hours with you pre-qualifying themselves, often almost convincing themselves that you're the right advisor for them. And when they do book a call or meet you, they show up already trusting you. I can't tell you how many clients I have had that talk to me about a potential client coming in for a meeting and practically treating them like a celebrity because they've been listening to their show. And they're just so, honored to meet them and basically like already sold on the business that they're going to do together. So it's no secret that podcasting won't get you clients immediately and that it is a long game. But creating bingeable episodes using these formulas and this episode as your guide to creating a binge worthy show ensures that your podcast becomes not just a lead generator, but a relationship builder and a conversion engine that supports your business long term without you having to push for your sales every time. If you take nothing else from this episode, I want you to take this. A single great episode gets attention. A connected series of episodes builds a client's journey. Your job as the host is not just to teach, it's to guide. And then when you do that well by creating these 3 different types of episodes, attraction, nurture, and conversion, and by creating bridges or teasers into the next topic and really connecting them together for your listeners, your podcast doesn't just get listened to here and there, people jumping in and out. You get follows, you build trust with your listeners, and that's where you see a show that supports your business as a true asset. Now, as I mentioned earlier, if you want help mapping this out for your show, if the steps I walked through make sense, but you're not sure you can do it yourself, or you would really need to calendar some time and have an accountability partner to make sure that you do this well, I would love to help you. We will structure your episodes, we'll refine your messaging, and we'll really focus on building a bingeable podcast that converts and supports your business. My email is virginia@podcastabundance.com, or you can DM me on LinkedIn. I'm on there as Virginia Elder. So, what I would do then is work with you one-on-one through a set of structured strategy sessions. Say that 3 times fast. And we will make the adjustments that your show needs without getting stuck on things that aren't really going to move the needle. I love to get to apply my trust to traction framework to other people's shows and really help them shift into something that is truly working for their business. Of course, having a bingeable show affects your podcast ROI. It should go up, right? So if you're not tracking your podcast ROI, I need you to start today before you apply this framework so that you can actually see the difference in the leads you're receiving, your website traffic, your email list size, and all of the things. There are over 52 ways that you can track podcast ROI, and I bet you're missing a few of them. So go today to podcastabundance.com/ROI-tracker and download that free Google Sheet today. Customize it to fit your show. Highlight the pieces that you really want to track that will make a difference for your business. And let me know if you have any questions about it. I cannot wait to hear about your binge-worthy podcast. Thanks for being here today.